You're listening to the Valley Current.
Welcome into the Valley Current. My name is Jack Russo. I'm the managing partner of Computer Law Group. We publish these podcasts generally on a weekly basis, and I'm so lucky that this week I have with me Dr. Akintoye Akindele. I know him as just Dr. Toye, who's visiting us from Africa, and we're going to get into what is going on in Africa, which is just an amazing story. And just to give a few seconds of background, Dr. Toye and I first met a couple of years ago in Paris at a class that we were both in doing a seminar. He already has his doctorate degree. I was there taking some classes towards a PhD that I'm working on. Of course, this is a lifelong journey. My wife keeps saying, well, you know, maybe you'll get it before you retire. I kind of laugh because I have so many other degrees that she laughs at and says, you can make more money with your law degree. What are you doing? And I have an MBA from Columbia, but that's all history. But Dr. Toye is doing stuff in Africa that is amazing, and he amazed me the first time we met. And I said, when you come to Silicon Valley, and I think this is now your third trip or fourth trip, but I said, you have to visit, and we'll eventually have this radio room, and you have to spend some time telling all the folks that listen to us and see us on Facebook and YouTube and elsewhere about what you're doing, because you both have a company that has done amazing things with capital overseas generally, but now you've got a focus in Africa with a group you call the Unicorn Group, or you'll tell us about it. But tell us a few minutes about that journey and how you got there, because you're an amazing guy.
Thank you, Jack, and thanks for having me. It's really a great pleasure to see what the podcast looks like.
Yes, what a real podcast room looks like, right?
Podcast room look like, and what I tell people is this is why I come to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. The advantage of being able to see where the world is going and being able to replicate it back home is significant, because as you know, part of growing or part of a business model being successful is knowing how to expose the business model to the customers, and more importantly, how to understand what's happening in a global market and how to replicate it locally. And that's what I think Silicon Valley offers most of us on the continent. But I'll get back to that later. Like you said, my background was in engineering. I was an engineer. I moved into finance 24 years ago. I did corporate finance and investment banking. And for the last 17 years, I've done private equity. And I've raised money from a lot of folks in the U.S. and in Europe, from guys like Washington University, University of Illinois, Grinnell College. I've managed money for them on the continent, where I've deployed this capital in West Africa in small and medium enterprises. And we've done a fairly decent job at that. And as we were deploying that money, we realized that we were not making enough startups on the continent. And that was evident in valuations trending up in the SME space. The fewer companies you have coming on from the conveyor belt, the higher the valuations you pay for the good ones that are available, because you have a lot of capital chasing few companies. So from that perspective, it was obvious to me that for us to be successful, first as a business and also as a continent, we have to unlock entrepreneurship. There is a level of exposure that we need to give entrepreneurship on the continent. A lot of people, one thing about Silicon Valley and the States is failure is celebrated here. Failure is not a stigma. I mean, when you fail, people look at where you tripped, where you fell down, and then correct that error, and that's very important. Back home in Africa and other emerging markets, failure is frowned upon, so people are afraid to take risk in the first place. And that then means that if there's no entrepreneurship, there's no innovation. And if there's no innovation, there are no new companies. And you don't have the whole issue of fewer companies to invest in, fewer capital to be recycled, fewer growth on the continent, and it becomes a very vicious cycle.
Right.
So from my perspective, we then said to ourselves, one of the ways we can assure our investment business is to backwards integrate and get earlier stage opportunities and not just put capital but what I call nurturing capital that enables this company grow to become scalable businesses, and replicate business models around how to grow a business that they've done very well in Silicon Valley and other developed markets. So from that perspective, we started deploying money in two verticals. One is the tech and tech-enabled. And tech-enabled is very important. In the age where Africa is 1.1 billion people, right? And with an average age of 19 years old.
That's amazing. Amazing demographic, right?
Yeah. In the next 30 years, half of the world population will be African. The working class population will be African. That means Africa will be the labor force of the world. That's one. Two, Africa has the largest farmland globally. So most of the food, Africa can feed the world in terms of availability of land for farming. That's two. Resource-wise, Africa is the richest continent. Everything from oil to gold to even what you use for compressors and cobalt, Africa has the largest deposit. So Africa is also the resource base of the world. It then have a young population that is growing in an age where information borders are now open. We have over 700 million mobile phones. That's 70% mobile phone penetration. We have close to 400 million internet access. That's 40% penetration. And a lot of this internet and phone is with these young people. So you have young people who are consuming data, consuming information, who are learning, who are developing skills in an online real-time basis through learning from Google, learning from YouTube, are then able to tackle Africa's problem. So you have, on one side, you have the need. You have a need that we need to have. We need to solve our problems around electricity, around food, around payments, around security, around everything. You have a young population on that side who now has the know-how. What we then need to do is to pair that know-how with that opportunity. And I think that's where Silicon Valley comes into it, because this is what Silicon Valley did 40, 50 years ago, where you were able to unlock the creativity of the curious minds of the founders of Silicon Valley to then solve global problems. I mean, you have guys doing coding from age of 5, 6, 7 years old. A lot of great ideas to then solve Africa's problem. By solving Africa's problem, we solve global problems, whether it's payments, whether it's technology. And that's what Africa is about. A great continent, great opportunity, ambitious people playing catch up. So, unlike a lot of places, the opportunities in Africa are simple business model innovations, right?
But let's pause for a second just to make sure everyone on the podcast gets, and the broadcast gets, the basics of Africa as you've explained them, which is it's sort of this continent that's been underserved by capital. Like if you look at the big picture and I ask you, all of these positive statements about demographics, geography, resources, the young population, why isn't venture capital creating entities like all of the famous venture capital firms, which I'm sure you'll visit up and down Sand Hill Road here? They've got billions to deploy. Why has it been, I think I read a statistic saying there was less than $100 million of early stage money going into this continent? I mean, that is a drop in the bucket of the available capital that is spent in the United States. Why is there such a huge difference?
Correct, and thank you, Jack, because that's also where the opportunity is. There's a lot of information asymmetry. A lot of people in the States and in Silicon Valley don't have enough information about Africa. Most people still think of Africa as that continent where you see people dying, people hungry, and as such, they don't expect a lot of things to come out of the continent. Right. But quietly, what they don't realize is that a lot of capital has been deployed from Europe, from Asia. China is big on the continent, for example. Okay. And that's what people are missing. While US and the Western world is not looking at the continent, China is massive across the continent. So I think to answer your question, first is, up until 20 years ago, most of African economies were under military rule. And I'm sure you understand from a capital point of view, you want the legal framework, you have the asset protection rights, you want the rule of law and all that. Mm-hmm. And that's not very positive thing under military rule. Africa is actually a young democracy. Most of our economies have less than 30 years continued democracy. And And that's and that's created the perception gap. And 30 years ago, Silicon Valley was already huge. So when other markets of China were opening up, Asia was opening up, Africa was still not ready.
Right.
That's one. So young democracy, rule of law is getting for most of the continent right now. Almost all of the countries are now have free democracy, successful transitions, and that's extremely important.
Right.
That is one. Two also is exposure. I think a lot of the entrepreneurs have not told their story effectively. And look at this right now. I've come to say hi to Jack, and I'm on a podcast in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And this is significant because telling your story is extremely important to you being successful. It's like imagine you go into a market and everywhere is dark. How do you buy from that market?
Right.
And that's what we've done to ourselves. Give an example of driverless cars going around here.
Right, you see here,
as
I said this morning, I walked to work this morning. There were 4 different company logos on 4 different driverless cars. There's 4 different competitors all testing in downtown Palo Alto. I mean, it's a pretty amazing statement.
And I think what I say to people right now is that in the U.S., just to put an example, a lot of the innovation right now is going towards testing demand that is not real, but that you believe will come, like driverless cars.
Right. Yes.
And that has risk along with it. In Africa, what you are solving is for real demand.
Real demand.
Real demand.
Right.
And that's alpha right there.
Right.
The difference between what Africa offers this valley is when you come to the continent and you partner with guys who are on the ground, who know what they are doing, with track record, with world-class operations, with discipline, you are able to make decent returns well above by taking lower risk, because by solving real return, the market is real.
Right.
Market is real, market is assured. And also, up until recently, a lot of capital flows were restricted and everything. So the continent is opening up. And what people don't realize is, and that's why China is on the continent. China is on the continent massively, and they're making opportunities. Huawei and Techno are the largest phone providers on the continent. And iPhone is there, but iPhone is more of a...
luxury.
So you have 700 million phones.
Yes.
Half of them are smartphones.
Yes.
So 60-70% are Chinese or Asian versions of that phone.
Right.
And that is huge. So from that point of view, whether it's technology, whether it's fashion, whether it's services, guys, everything we need on the continent. We need to make our own clothes. We need to make our own shoes. We need to feed our own people. We need to put on electricity. Those are real demand. And another illusion is that people say there is no disposable income. And that's where people make that mistake. African economy is mostly informal. Values the African continent at 1.8 trillion GDP for the formal sector. What it will also tell you is that the informal sector, which is a cash-based economy, is almost 4 trillion. So if you take the formal sector and the formal together, Africa is the 3rd largest economy.
Third largest after U.S. and China.
After U.S. and China.
Okay.
Now, up until this year, most of these countries were all closed up. But the African Union has signed an African trade agreement that opens up the border to every country.
With no tariffs
with no tariffs.
restrictions.
It's an open border. So imagine 1.1 billion markets.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
With disposable income to spend on services. I gave an example yesterday. 19 years ago, I invested in one of the first mobile telephone operators in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
My last job. That company last year turned over about $3 billion, right? It took them 19 years to get to $3 billion, and they're doing very well.
That's a great success.
Now, 6 years ago, a gaming company from Europe, owned by 60 majority owned by a European investor, achieved the same $3 billion in 5 years. The same $3 billion
in Africa.
In Nigeria. No,
in Nigeria. Oh, just one country.
Just one country.
Right. Let's pause here because a lot of listeners, I see this all the time, even from very smart people. They don't understand that Africa is composed of 54 different countries, and there really is about 6 or 8 that are super high growth, and lots of others that are sort of following in the path. Now, maybe you'd say it's more than 6 or 8. Well, I want to talk about that because your company, Platform Capital, which has had this great success, it probably does focus on just a few of those 54 countries. But tell us about that, because I think what you're saying now is, well, the African Union, which is sort of like a notion of a continent-wide approach to mobility and cross-border trade and the like. It's trying to do things that are smart to make sure that innovation can be replicated and compensated across the entire continent, 54 countries.
Homogeneous market, correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, just Africa 101, I'll call it.
Yes,
there are
please.
4 regions in Africa. There's West Africa, there's East Africa, there's North and South. Averagely, each of them about 300 million per region. So
Yes.
300 million people in each of the regions.
Yes.
And
That's
most
like
of
the United States is
yeah,
300 million people, right?
So, exactly. So
Right.
each of the regions like a...
So it's like 4 versions of the United States, right?
In the West Africa, you have the resource-rich countries in West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have oil,
Like Nigeria.
like Ghana. They have
Right.
oil, they have gold,
Right.
they have and other commodities. In East Africa as well, you have the East African Union, which is actually fairly integrated. But they also have some resources, but tourism is their biggest business,
Right.
and market homogeneity is what they offer.
So a leading country in East Africa would
Kenya.
be
Kenya is the leading country,
Yes.
and Ethiopia
Yes.
in East Africa.
Yes.
And you have Southern Africa, where you have, South Africa being the biggest company there,
Yes.
and the second largest economy. And you have North Africa, where you have Egypt, Morocco, and co.
Yes.
Now, you're right. There are about 10 big economies on the continent. There are 10 big ones
Yes.
that contribute about 70% of the market.
Right.
And however, if you look at it from a regional point of view, each region is almost fully homogeneous. So if you take West Africa, mobility across West Africa is very simple. In West Africa, Nigeria dominates that region fully.
Right.
In East Africa, Kenya does the same thing. In South Africa, you have Congos, the other guys there. The point I'm trying to make is, while there are 10 markets, so in Africa, while there are 10 markets, the smaller economies tend to track the bigger from a supply point of view.
Right. So I'm kind of curious, when you look at your company, your firm, Platform Capital, that was your decision that, hey, I think that I can enable essentially a venture firm type operation in a country that really has an undersupply of venture capital. That was a big decision that you made.
I mean, definitely, and you have to understand that I took this decision having been a money manager. For the last 16 years, I've been managing a private equity fund, the largest SME fund in West Africa, where we manage money for the World Bank, the British government, the European Union, all that.
Yes.
But because I saw the gap, it was clear to me that from the alpha is better.
Yes.
Everybody knows that.
Well, explain that to people, the alpha, because even that basic fact is worth communicating.
It's a risk-return trade-off.
Yes.
When you enter an investment early on, you're taking more risk. And it then implies that you make more return as the company scales. Most of the wealth that has been created in Silicon Valley has come from people taking earlier stage risk.
Yes.
If you take a company's life cycle from concept to startup to critical mass to maturity,
right,
most of the return that people make is in that stage of early stage investment onto maturity. And by the time the company becomes a market leader, most of the money has been made.
Right.
So from my point of view, going in early and then working with entrepreneurs, creating a body of knowledge and ecosystem to ensure that we are able to create successful companies who can scale across the continent, who can then attract follow-on capital, will do one of 3 things. First, we'll make money. 2, we'll be able to change the narrative and position the continent as a market of opportunities. And thirdly, we also then create value by creating ecosystems. So whether it's agri-tech, the agri-value chain, whether it's payment technology, develop that market. In fact, between VC and PE, the ratio is almost 1 to 10.
Yes.
Most of the capital on the continent is going towards growth capital. And I understand that because it's less risky. I'll tell you about an opportunity we did a couple of years ago. We invested in an entrepreneur who was basically just trying to create the first energy park in Nigeria. I mean, Nigeria is the largest producer of oil in the continent.
Right.
We don't have functioning refineries. We don't have functioning gas processing operations. So this entrepreneur walked to Houston, found a company called Chemex, who is the largest modular company refinery in the States, ordered modular refinery, went to Italy, ordered gas plants, went to Illinois, ordered Caterpillar engines, and is now putting a very small, just on a 10,000 square feet of land, where in one location it can produce refined products, it can produce power, it can produce gas. This company has grown from our entry valuation to our current valuation is grown about 50 times in less than 2 years.
Wow, nice. And did you invest in that? Did you help him?
We did.
So you must have seen something. Some people call it the fire in the belly of the entrepreneur, saying, I'm going to make that vision happen. You liked the vision. You thought he could do it. So it was easy to give him the capital.
We look for three things when we're doing early stage investment in Africa. First thing we look for is hunger. And what I say is very simple. A lion has one job, hunt and kill.
Yes.
A lion is a lion. So I look for hunger. The entrepreneur has to be extremely willing to be successful.
Yes.
Willing to give up everything to be successful.
All in.
All in or nothing.
Skin in the game and all in.
All in or nothing.
Yes.
If the guy is hedged, if he has a day job, you know my guy.
Yes.
If the guy thinks that he can't do it, I need to see that the dreamy look in his eyes, thinking that he believes he can change the world.
Yes.
That's the first thing we look for.
Okay.
Second thing we look for is that we look for business models that have high cash flow ability. Mm-hmm. Because unlike the US, where you have an ecosystem of financing, in Africa you don't have it. So you have to quickly get cash flow positive to be able to stay alive.
Right.
If you stay too long in cash flow negativity or not being profitable, you will not survive. Right. Simple. Right. So the cash flow we have to see our way to. What I say to my guys is, I want to have the company give it my cash back within 3 years. Otherwise, I can't do the deal.
That's fast.
That's fast.
Silicon Valley is like, hey, 5-10 years is okay.
No, because remember, if I'm solving business model issues, market is not the problem. What are you keeping my cash for?
Right.
If the market is there, if the real demand, the underlying assumption is that if you have the product, people will buy it. Yes. If they buy it, cash flow should come in. It should be profitable. Right. Now, we can then decide how you want to scale up later. Okay. We need to see that's to cash flow. And third thing we look for is scale. Mm-hmm. It must be able to scale very quickly. Okay. Otherwise, we can't replicate it. Because for us, we are very keen on replicating business models across the continent. Because that's very important. The more people see this can be done, this has been done, you demystify innovation indirectly. Because people then believe that it can be done. Because the biggest challenge we have on the continent is people believing they can do something. Yes. We've been told so many times that it's not possible, we can't do it, there's no capital. There's so many reasons why people can't innovate. Right. So we need to show people that innovation is free. The dream is free. The hustle, though, is sold differently. And that's what we look for. So we back people who have clear vision, who are hungry, and who are clear, and we're able to show us a route to cash flow within 3 years. Within 3 years, you have to be you have to show cash flow positivity. Okay. Within 5 years, you have to be profitable, or we can't touch you.
Okay, so you're doing what I would call a very aggressive early stage model that in Silicon Valley, if you said that to entrepreneurs, they'd say, yes, I'm hungry. Yes, I have a great business model. Yes, I'm going to scale, but I'm not sure I'm going to get profitable in 5 years. They'd look at you like, you're wanting too much. I mean, look at Uber. It's still not profitable. Even Airbnb, maybe Airbnb is profitable. Someone will check me on that. But you're taking those ideas and you're saying to entrepreneurs in Africa, look, if you can do this, we can get you the capital. And what I want to transition to, you've doubled down or gone all in by creating this new unicorn group. So tell us about that, because that's a really exciting concept, because you really want to hit it out of the park.
Of course.
Even the name of the company, right?
But how to create unicorns from Africa. And I think, and that's a great point, Jack. And so I think Silicon Valley has done an excellent job, and I think Silicon Valley will still be a leader. And that's why we are here. That's why we brought companies here to come and see how companies in the Valley.
Yeah, so let's give a plug to Mark White, who's a great lawyer in Redwood City, a good friend of mine. In fact, he and I used to work together at Fenwick & West many decades ago. Mark now has his own firm, White & Summers. He's created the Africa House, which is a great idea of trying to get African innovators to be plugged into Silicon Valley. And you brought a group, and Mark did a very successful show with you, kind of a competition among the 5 best companies that you guys selected. They were all great. I was there. I was one of the judges. I was like, wow, these guys are completely top-notch presentations, top-notch entrepreneurs, top-notch ideas. And that's a real statement that you were able to get that to all happen. That's an amazing statement. Congratulations.
So thank you. Thank you about that. So to So why did we start up Unicorn? And I'll tell you quickly background. In the US, the cost of capital is pretty low.
Yes.
So cost of capital in the US is, what, 7, 8, 9%?
Yeah, well, lower than that if you have bank backing, but it's a low number comparatively.
Cost of debt in Africa is not of 20%.
Wow. Ouch.
Exactly.
Ouch.
So first is, for me to get out of bed, you have to be doing above 20%. For you to return above 20% cost of capital,
yes,
you have to be fast growing.
Yes.
You can't afford to burn cash for 10 years.
Right.
So from a financing instrument point of view, Silicon Valley model will not work.
Right.
And I've seen Silicon Valley firms come to Nigeria and try and roll out Silicon Valley financing models, losing their shirts.
Yes.
It will be tough for any company who continues to make loss and hoping to make loss for 10 years to survive. You're going to be bleeding cash.
Yes.
And Africa is very punitive when it comes to that. So from our point of view, we need to focus on businesses that can turn profitable very quickly and then finance their own growth.
Yes.
Or can then become attractive to companies, to financiers in US and Europe to access lower and cheaper capital.
Yes.
And as Platform Capital, which is my family office, started doing all this investment across emerging markets, we then realized that we need a very focused vehicle for tech and tech-enabled.
Yes.
Because tech and tech-enabled has a lot of homogeneity in it in terms of shared infrastructure, shared resources. The companies you all saw yesterday, they can always be in an ecosystem. So we now create a unicorn, we carve that unicorn, and the vision behind unicorn is to create unicorns out of Africa and working with them not just by financing them, by also hand-holding them, by bringing them to Silicon Valley to talk to guys like you who can then show them the best practices you have to adopt, by enabling them to be able to scale up globally. So one of our partners, we have partnership with hubs in Mexico, in Europe. So a great idea in Africa, for example, can be replicated or can be tested in US, in Europe in one move.
Right.
And that's very important. So Unicorn is focused on creating tech and tech-enabled businesses where they can scale up and become global players. Because by solving Africa's problem, we're solving global problems. And that's the whole idea by Unicorn. So Unicorn is focused on tech and tech across Africa, while Platform Capital is more general, sector agnostic, and region agnostic.
Right. And the beauty of Unicorn is you've got a management team that is actually going to, as I understand it, but elaborate on it, plant an incubator type operation, including a building that I think you guys are actually constructing, which is an amazing statement that you're going to break dirt. Like a lot of people would say, no, don't do that. But you've got this concept that you're going to have innovation centers in each of the fastest growing 7 locations, if I got the numbers right.
Correct.
And you've got like 7 partners, right, that are all going to be in this,
all
right?
partners, all operating partners. We have venture partners. We have operating people who have operating experiences.
Yes.
Extremely important.
Yes.
So the idea behind that is that, so we came to Silicon Valley, we then studied what made companies in Silicon Valley successful. We found a few things. One of them was the information and knowledge sharing. 2, we found out that there was a very strong peer networking effect where people were influencing and helping each other.
Yes. We
found out that capital access was critical. We also then found out that they had very strong professional service, great lawyers, great accountants, and all the things. Now, you can't build another Silicon Valley. There's only one Silicon Valley. We then tried to build a campus around in every key market on the continent, from Nairobi to South Africa to Lagos to Ghana to Morocco, where in one location, our portfolio companies can access what they can access globally, be it access to online data with a partnership with ISM or Singularity University, be it access to guys like you via virtual medium, be it financing from Unicorn Capital or technology experts, everything that you need to succeed, so that the entrepreneurs can focus on what they're meant to, their own business model.
Right.
So the whole idea is to support them with every aspect of their resource requirements, so that they can then go on and innovate.
And it seems to me you're doing, in my mind, you might be doing even one better than what the Y Combinators and the other incubators have done here in the U.S., because you're actually anticipating the needs in a way that I think Y Combinator, not to be negative about them, but I don't think they're trying to be the complete full-service operation to take care of the entrepreneur, and I think you guys are doing one better than them.
And I think Y Combinator's business model is different from ours.
Yes.
We believe that is even after the initial incubation and initial capital, these companies need a lot of follow-on hand-holding support, and that's extremely important.
Right.
So we take it beyond just initial incubation, and we then support them online, real-time, on the ground.
Okay.
So when you come to Y Combinator or come to any of the other incubators in the States, you have your business model developed, you get funding, you go back home. Well, you're going to have to need market access.
Yes.
Who's going to open the door for you? How do you call a bank CEO to say, I want to see you?
Right.
We can do that.
Okay.
How do you get the best lawyer in town to help look at how regulation could affect you? We can do that. How do I get the best talent pool?
Right.
And to know, this guy, I want to hire this CTO. He has a resume. Who do I call to say, is he a good guy or not? We can do that.
Right.
So it's not just the initial seeding.
Yes.
It's beyond seeding.
Right.
Our values from concept to critical mass, C to C, we are with you all the way.
So I'm just curious, like, if you look at what you're establishing, it sounds like you're going to have thousands of entrepreneurs pitching you, and then you're going to have to be selective and make those hard decisions and let people know, you're not ready yet, maybe come back next year, refine it. But what are the numbers like? You must already be seeing lots of applicants, right?
So this year alone, we saw about 5,000 applications to join our program. Our vision is across all our markets every year to engage 100,000 entrepreneurs and invest. Now listen to this, and invest in 100 of them. 100. So it's 0.1%.
Wow. But very selective.
Yeah, very selective. But the 100,000 that we invest will go through all our programs, virtual incubation, virtual support, because it's not just capital.
Yes.
We want to add value to the ecosystem.
Yes.
So we'll advise them. So even when they don't get capital, they get value.
Yes.
And they then go on and become better.
Right.
And that's our approach. So 100 deals a year across 4 key regions, 25 in every, and that's why. So right now, we this unicorn team, when I first came here a few years ago, Jack, it was an idea. We've now gone on and done 10 companies, 10 deals this year with our own balance sheet, with our own money.
Nice.
And I think we're now at the stage where we're not getting interest from other family offices in US and in Europe who want to collaborate with us.
Yes.
And our model is not to manage other people's money. Our model is to show partners deals and get them to co-invest alongside us.
Okay.
And we then de-risk them. What we tell our co-investment partners, because we are long-term permanent capital, when you co-invest alongside us, we'll give a guaranteed put option. You can put your capital to us over 7 years at 2x. Wow. So basically,
that makes it very attractive.
Very attractive. Because if I'm in the Silicon Valley and you come and say, I want to invest in Nigeria, I'm wondering, how am I sure my money will come out? What do I know that is too far? But I'm saying, no. You have a partner in Unicorn that is on ground, that is doing deals that we believe that can scale.
Yes.
And because we are already in, we are your last capital. Now, this works on both ways. The entrepreneurs see us as their partners, so they're happy to have us.
Yes.
The investors see us as their partners.
Right.
So we actually plug in that gap between two sides.
Right.
7 years, 2 years, 2x put option guaranteed for any investor that goes along with us in any of our deals.
So let me ask you a question before we sort of wind up and summarize and wrap up. Are the governments being supportive in these different separate nations? Because if I were Nigeria or I were Kenya or I were any of these other countries, I would actually be saying what you're doing is amazing. Let's give some amazing tax incentives or opportunity zone incentives, or hey, we've got some land here. Let's just give it to you to build your building on, because you're doing stuff that arguably is so infrastructure for the entire country and then the continent. They should be all over you supporting it. I mean, what feedback are you getting from the government?
That's never enough.
Yeah.
So government is doing great job. They can do more.
Yes.
Most of the governments are already creating venture capital firms. They're seeding them to fund deals. So, for example,
the government itself. Yes,
So they're already getting involved in capital formation.
Yes.
And that's a major step.
Yes.
So, for example, Lagos State government, which is state government Nigeria, has this program called Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, and they are here in the Valley with us as well.
Yes, sir.
This year alone, they've given micro loans to 9,000 entrepreneurs.
Okay.
9,000.
Okay.
That's huge. That's one. And these are now 9,000 people that we can then go in and invest in. And they will then show us, the guys have lent money to, then ask Unicorn, can you invest in these deals?
Right, so it's a funnel. It's part of a funnel for you.
It's a great funnel. So they are doing capital formation, they're enabling it, they're creating a funnel, and they're also then giving us tax incentives as well. So same thing is happening in South Africa, East Africa. So the governments are now beginning to get idea, because really, the real resource of Africa are the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most governments are gradually recognizing that, from Ghana to Kenya, from South Africa to Nigeria, is now you're not seeing government get involved in capital formation, capital deployment, origination, and policy to ensure that entrepreneurship is encouraged.
Yes. Well, I have to say, I saw 5 of your entrepreneurs last night, and I was amazingly impressed, because I said to myself, if this is the level of quality that you're going to duplicate each year 100 times over, you're going to have some of those become a unicorn for sure. And, unicorn's a big statement that it's going to be this billion-dollar company. You don't really have to hit a grand slam. I mean, you want to hit a grand slam. You've got big ambitions, and I want to end on this note. Your name has a special meaning. Tell us what your first and last name mean, because I think it's sort of symbolic of everything you're saying and everything you're doing.
So, thanks, Jack. Somebody asked me on Saturday that, what do I do? And I said, I'm a hope merchant. My job is to give people hope.
Yes.
To showcase light on the continent, and to show people that we can do this. My first name is Toye, which means warrior king. In Africa, everybody's name means something, okay? And my last name is Akindele, which means warrior has come home.
Yes.
If you put my first and last together, it means warrior king has come home.
Okay.
And for me, that's very important, because all the companies you saw yesterday, and you will see more, are all warriors that are all coming home.
Yeah.
And home is where we are right now.
So let me just say this, and I don't want to sound kind of flip, but the thought that occurred to me, and we do this in real time so that it becomes a brainstorming, I want to send a copy of this podcast to Eddie Murphy, and to say to Eddie Murphy in Hollywood, the famous actor who did the film, that's sort of a very funny film. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But it's
Coming to America.
Yeah, it's very funny. Yeah. And he had a big fight with Art Buchwald about who really created the film. Yeah. That'll all be a footnote to the story, but you really need to get some of these Hollywood influencers to say, these are billionaires. They can cut a check for, $100 million without sneezing. Imagine if you had, and maybe eventually you will have, that kind of capital to be able to deploy across all these young entrepreneurs, and maybe some of them are even older entrepreneurs, because people are all living longer. A lot of serial entrepreneurs like yourself do better and better over time, and we like to say here at Computer Law Group, we welcome serial entrepreneurs. We sometimes see entrepreneurs that are like 70 years old. They're like, I got an idea for something new. I want to do something. I say, bravo to you. Let's do it. So conceptually, these entrepreneurs are going to probably have 5 to 10 venture cycles in them. So you're creating this vintage of entrepreneurs that know local markets, local needs. I have to believe what you're going to do is amazingly successful. So everyone in Hollywood that has capital that shouldn't necessarily be just going back in the U.S. should look for uncorrelated markets, like Africa is not correlated to the stock market in the U.S. That's a really positive thing for them.
Extremely, and I think to add to that, not only Africa is not correlated, the early stage in Africa is way not correlated.
Yes.
So first is you can look at Africa from 2 perspectives. The developed part of it that is correlated, but the early stage part is purely diversified. And for us, what I tell everybody we are investing in is that what we are doing is what I call the ripple effect. We are throwing a stone in the water to cause ripples.
Yes.
So all these guys must be ambassadors for the continent.
Yes.
And when they succeed, by not just returning money, but doing things the right way, global best practices, trust with the investors, transparency, women empowerment, everything that, this is not just about talk anymore. It has come to stay. And adopt global best practices and make sure that they implement it on a continent and create winning business models. I think the money in Hollywood and New York will come back to Africa itself.
Yes.
And that's the whole idea. We need to be a magnet as against chasing that money. We need to do our own homework first.
Right.
And money comes. Then that's easier conversation.
Right. So tell people how they can reach you and what the website is for Unicorn, and I guess also the website for Platform Capital, because there may be people interested in either or both. So tell them how they can reach you as well.
I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Dr. Toye Akindele. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Platform Capital's website is www.theplatformcapital.com, and Unicorn is www.unicornmaking.com. Also, you can reach me to Jack Russo. He's a good friend of mine. I'm Mark White.
Well, we'll put all the connections in. Thank you for spending your morning with us. I'm Jack Russo. I'm with Computer Law Group, www.computerlaw.com, and of course Jay Russo at Computer Law. And we do take phones 650-327-9800. You have a phone number too. We won't release it, but we'll release the details of your email and your various websites so that people know how to get more information, because I think you are one of the thought leaders in Africa that will eventually get the Nobel Prize for making that country successful. So that's my wish for you, because I think you deserve it. Thank you for spending your time. Very good.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.